We advise the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Cunanan. On this show, we talk about everything under the sun, and tonight's topic is about sports, once again, specifically bodybuilding. Now, contrary to popular belief, bodybuilding is not just for muscle-bound, narcissistic males, but it can be a sport for everyone and anyone. And joining us to lead us through the discussion of the basics of bodybuilding, the A to Z's of bodybuilding, are two gentlemen very much involved in the sport. We have Rocky Dowden and Lee Soriano, and they are with Maximum Muscle Magazine. Hi guys, welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Hi, buddy. Yeah, it's great to be here again.
Yes, again. It's been, as I recall, Lee, Rocky. This is the second time that that Rocky has been on this show. Although you arranged it before, Lee, and it's been what, Rocky, maybe a year,
Almost a year, I think, and so much has happened ever since.
Yeah, so much has happened. Now, let's introduce you guys first to the audience.
Right,
Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah. I'm Rocky Dowden. I'm the publisher of Maximum Muscle Magazine. And I'm also the founder of UBC, or Ultimate Bodybuilding Championship. It's a competition that we're launching on December 15. And later on we'll probably invite your guests to come watch that.
Swell. And Lee?
Yeah, I'm Lee Soriano. I'm the executive editor of Maximum Muscle Magazine and co-founder also of the Ultimate Bodybuilding Championships, or UBC, which we would also like to refer as a revolutionary new approach to bodybuilding competition.
Okay, we'll talk about the UBC in a few minutes. But okay, you guys are very much involved in bodybuilding. Is it because that you guys started out as bodybuilders and then you kind of made your segued into let's say organizing events, and now you have a magazine? How did you guys start?
Yeah, actually, in my case, I started out extremely or morbidly obese. Actually, I was about 276, no. And I had an accident, a badminton accident, which broke my ankle. So then I decided I really needed to get fit, no. But ever since, I was kind of involved with the industry because I'd watch all types of competitions, and you know, as fate would have it, we started putting up our own competitions, and we realized that hey, these athletes are very hardworking athletes. They just don't seem to have the support of that the other sports actually get. So being from, you know, a corporate background myself, I decided that hey, I mean, I think these guys just need a connection to the corporate sponsors, and you know, since they are you know, they're athletes who are world-class athletes, and we can actually win not just here in the Philippines but worldwide. I guess they just need us some push there in that direction. Yes. So that's my involvement basically. Now Lee and myself have been taking these bodybuilders, showing them off, and trying to get some corporate sponsorship and waking up everybody out there to the healthy lifestyle.
Yes, very good. How about you, Lee? What got you involved in bodybuilding?
Well, first of all, I'm not really a bodybuilder. No, I'm more of a basketball player and contact sports guy. No? The closest thing I ever had to bodybuilding was like when we were kids. Our concept of weights was lifting, you know, yung mga, what do you call
Dumbbells.
that? No, dumbbells and cooking oil cans stuck with cement. That was bodybuilding back then, no? Well, I was an admirer of, you know, bodybuilders. I would wonder how they get that big, no? Until a few years ago, I was just an admirer. Then Rocky invited me to come into the sport and see what I could do in terms of helping out the athletes. I am by profession a events man. I put up my own events company. We were colleagues for quite some time in the industry, in our own industry. And like I said, I was invited to come in. And, well, it's quite an experience trying to convince the public, the private sector in particular, why you should support this sport.
Ayun nga because a question I want to ask Rocky is that, you know, a lot of people don't view bodybuilding, unfortunately, as a sport. It is a sport, right? It is a sport. Now, how come there's that perception bodybuilding is not a sport, it's more of something for aesthetics only? Why is that?
True. Well, we get that a lot, and most of the time, the comments that we hear is that bodybuilding is so subjective, you know. So you have a certain number of judges who can actually say one is better than the other just because, you know, he probably likes the angle or whatnot. But actually, there are lots of professionally accredited judges. And it's not just, you know, who looks better to a certain person. There are things like symmetry, proportion, conditioning, posing, overall stage presence. There are criteria to be able to judge. And in fact, the thing with bodybuilding is the thing that the why we think that it's a sport is that, you know, it's something that you do all throughout your life. The competition actually is in the gyms because what you see on stage is
that's
just
the finished product. The finished product.
So it's one of the longest sports that you can ever play because it follows you even into your house.
Lifelong commitment talaga.
Right, you've heard what they say about abs are made in the kitchen and not in the gym, right? So even what they eat, how they sleep, these guys are, you know, almost 24/7 into the sport.
And that's the problem with bodybuilding, unlike other sports where there are points. Like, okay, let's say basketball, okay, or boxing. Even boxing has points where you knock someone down, then you know who wins. Now, in bodybuilding, as you said, it's more subjective. Now, as you said, you talked about the intensity of training for bodybuilding, and it's actually more intense than training for other sports in many ways. Now, why is this? What kind of preparation does an international bodybuilder have to undergo before he's ready for the big time, I mean, the prime time?
Easily they'd ask for 6 months. If you want to come up with a contest, give me 6 months to prepare. So, and they don't just, you know, step on stage, because the first thing they do is, normally some of them have to load up. So they actually carb load, they actually bulk up. Some of them actually go to the extent of they almost look fat, all right? But after that, there's a shredding or a cutting portion where they diet down to take out the water and show their muscularity. So it's really a very long process leading to the actual competition.
So 6 months is the average time that they need to prepare. I mean, like a bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder would need 6 months. Let's say there was something happening in June next year. Kailangan by January pa lang, nag-uumpisa na siya.
That's the ideal.
Yes.
Although there are some who can actually go to several different competitions in a string, but it's taxing on them. And the reason why they have to go off season sometimes is, you know, they have to eat like normal people, right? So they go off season also, because if you stay on season for 12 months out of the year, you're actually taxing your body, right? Because you're putting it through so much exercise, and you're feeding it not as much, especially when you're nearing a contest.
Because I assume you have to cut out the carbs.
Exactly, carbs and the water.
And the water
That's
as the competition nears.
Correct. That's why the comparison is a bodybuilder looks strongest during competition, but it's actually his weakest.
The weakest.
So these guys, when you see them pose or flex in front of the stage, some of them are very close to fainting.
Wow.
Right? So, and then people
it doesn't look
will
like
say
it. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah. So they
look invincible.
They look like they're enjoying themselves.
You really have to project that image of invincibility. I mean, if you want to impress the judge, right? But one thing I'd like to bring out now,
Sure.
you were saying about the concept of bodybuilding as a sport. You're right. Some people have this notion that for it to be a sport, you've got to have a ball, or you've got to
Yes.
punch somebody, or whatever. No?
Or someone that you have to beat outright.
Yeah, but what
rival,
what people must realize is that this is the very foundation for all sports disciplines. If you're not fit, you can't get into any sport. But these guys take it to an extreme. Let's just say, to get into this sport and to excel in this sport, you have to sacrifice a bit of yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
once you start, it's hard to give it up.
Yeah.
Years of preparation, and then all of a sudden you just give it up. I think.
How many years, let's say if someone starts today and wants to become a professional bodybuilder and compete, how many years do you think that person would need? Let's say, given the normal routine and if he follows the rules and follows the diet and all that, how long?
Well, we've seen, it's a combination of a lot of factors like genetics and their diet also, and
Okay.
sometimes even the financial,
Sure,
aspect,
sure.
your capability to buy the right supplements and food, right? But we've seen guys who decided to join, we call them novice, right? So basically, in a year, it is possible.
Okay.
But that's, of course, if you're a reasonably fit person,
Yes, yes.
right? But there are some also that, it takes them a lot of time, but they don't seem to see the progress that they'd want to. And more often than not, they're sabotaging themselves through their diet, or they're just plain training the wrong way, which is why today, some of the top bodybuilders, like some of the ones that we have
We're
here,
going to meet in a while.
they're one of the most sought after, because they've proven it in themselves, and everybody wants to be trained nowadays. Everybody wants the 6-pack, and more recently the 8-pack, right?
Eight pack. Parang yung sa 300, di ba?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
300,
So
eight-pack.
these guys have more than that, and they have it all the time without makeup.
Now, Rocky, I mean, bodybuilding is actually an expensive sport because it's not just
Oh,
about
yes.
lifting weights, but as you said, buying the right food
True.
and protein-rich food, and
Correct.
all these things cost money.
Yes.
And also, I mean, the amount of time that people have to put in the sport is a lot. How do people juggle now having a job and bodybuilding professionally?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Sure. Actually, if you notice, a lot of the top bodybuilders, the professional ones, or even the top amateurs in the country are fitness trainers themselves. So, in a way, they have found, a way to meld both their, money making with their passion. So, these guys, a lot of them are that way. However, there are some who do have, do have day jobs. One of them actually is here also, he has a day job.
Which is
and-
not connected to bodybuilding at all. Or
which is not
fitness.
connected,
Wow.
correct. And that's really tough, because you're in front of a computer, and the next thing you know, you're in front of plates, right?
And how many
you have to
hours
switch.
and how many hours do these guys work out every day to
Well,
maintain that level?
Yeah, when they're training, sometimes they'll have to train twice. So they either do it before the office and then after office also.
So how many hours are you talking about? A day?
An average training would be about 2 hours would be okay.
In the
In
morning
fact-
and then 2 hours?
Yes.
So 4 hours?
2 hours, 4 hours would be pretty long. Some of them just go into the gym and do maybe 1 hour or a little over that. It's how they split the body parts over the week anyway. So everybody has their own strategy, but somehow they get it done.
Now let's talk about judging. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things earlier about the angles and the cuts and all of that. Now, what do judges look for when they look at professional bodybuilders? Is bigger better? I mean, what is the norm?
Globally, it actually changes. There are times when it's dictated sometimes by the global preference. There were times when Mr. Universe used to be very big. Then after that, it was followed by very, very deep separation or good conditioning, all the cuts everywhere. The hardest time to compete is today, because now you are both big and cut. So the judges are very, very high standards. And some of the guys that you see here, gone were the days when somebody was big but he didn't have abs, right? This time they have
Kailangan kompleto
everything.
talaga,
They're
kompleto.
big, they're cut at the same time. So really, really exciting.
Okay, let's go to the state of bodybuilding today in the Philippines. How are we doing locally as a sport? How is the sport doing? And how are athletes doing overseas?
Yeah, actually, we've since the last time Lee and I
Yes.
were here, ever since we've had one of our champions, Dondon Cortuna. He actually won the Arnold Schwarzenegger amateur in the U.S.
Wow.
So he won gold in his division.
When was this?
Oh, this was sometime in March.
This year?
So yes, yes.
Wow.
So after that, we also have other competitions. The most recent one, for example, is in Germany, where we sent about close to 10 representatives there. There's one amateur Olympia where a Filipino actually won. Gerard Pangan won his division in the amateur Olympia.
Wow,
So
wow.
we can win internationally. There was one that was quite notable during, I think that was in May, during summer, the Hong Kong Invitational, where 15 of the medals went to Filipinos.
Wow.
And it was really a sweep for the Philippine team.
Yes.
And people get surprised that we have a Mr. Universe how many times over in the Philippines.
Yes. Di ba, Lee? I mean, the traditional way of thinking is that, how can Filipinos compete? Because as a race, we're basically Malay, so maybe smaller, slighter than, let's say, the Nordic or North American people, or, And so how can Pinoys, with our frame, with our bodies, how can we compete in a sport, which is really about, bulk and maybe size and building muscle. And so this is really a revelation for me that Filipinos are doing so well. And what's a shame is that even Dondon Cortona, who won the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic,
yeah.
and hardly anyone knows about it here in the Philippines.
Good point.
Yeah.
We were the ones who actually had to drag media people to the airport to cover. It wasn't like as if, I'm sorry to say it, but there are other sports you don't really win, but when they get to the airport, you have people going gaga over them, right?
Yes,
It's tragic in a way, wherein here's a sport where you can actually not really dominate, but give a good account of yourselves, and yet when you come home, nobody knows about it. Even if we tell media, they won't publish it.
How come the interest is not there? I mean, Lee, as an events person, as a PR person, why do you think the media is not picking up on bodybuilding?
I think
The way it does boxing or other sports, or the football.
Football, yeah.
I think there's still this preconceived notion again about sports that you have to. It's either you've got to be a face, or you've got to do something really, really dramatic.
Yeah, but winning the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, for a Pinoy to win that's pretty dramatic.
Correct.
And as you mentioned earlier, before we started taping, Dondon Cortona is how tall is he?
5'3".
So he's not a big guy,
Yeah, that's why, going back to your point a while ago,
Wow.
people were wondering how he could actually win. But they actually use it to their advantage. Because they're smaller, it's easier to fill their frame with lots of muscle. So they go there at, like, he was 75 kilograms when he competed. And he looked really muscle bound because you put 75 kilograms
5'2",
in a
5'3" guy,
5'2",
that's a lot
5'3"
of
frame,
bulk,
that's
sure.
a lot of muscle.
Sure.
But you've got these Viking size athletes, right? that are like 6'2", 6'5". They weigh 250 pounds. They're normal.
And if you look at them compared to Dondon,
Oh, yeah.
maybe they don't look as packed as he does. Kasi malaki, di ba?
Correct.
6'2" is a big guy. 6'3".
Plus better conditioning. So that's why they call him the Giant Slayer. So. but just to be just to bring something new, we actually brought a real giant here later on. So
Which
it'd be good to see that
who
later
we're
on.
all going to meet now. Let's talk about Lee. Let's talk about the state of the sport here in the Philippines. Is there a national sports association that represents bodybuilding?
At the moment, none.
That's another thing. How come there should be an NSA? We're excelling, no? And
Yes.
NSAs are supposed to receive money from the Philippine Sports Commission and funding from the government. And it's a shame because clearly Pinoys are excelling, and because there's no NSA, then it really cuts off or eliminates a source of funding from the government. No, I mean that channel of getting funds from the government is somehow not as open as others.
Well, we had an NSA before, but
Yeah.
It got suspended, I believe, in 2006
Oh.
over certain issues that
But 2006, it's 6, 7 years ago. I mean, how come in all that time, how come no other NSA has been, I mean, if this NSA has an issue, why doesn't the PSC or the POC, why doesn't the Philippine Olympic Committee recognize another group in lieu of that?
At the moment, the problem is we are not recognized as an Olympic sport.
So it's I think it's a
priority.
priorities issue with government. And although it's sad because after winning the Arnold and the Amateur Olympiad, those are the top 2 competitions in the world for non-professionals. So every title out there, the most prestigious titles, Filipinos have already won. So there's really no question that this is a winnable sport for us.
Yeah. And if I may add, in 2006, when the NSA was suspended, we had actually won medals in the Southeast Asian Games. That was the very last time
Imagine
we saw bodybuilding.
But bodybuilding is an Olympic sport, is it? Is it a demonstration, like
No,
exhibition sport? Not yet.
Not
even.
also an Olympic sport.
No wonder
so
the POC is not.
Exactly.
But do you think that it will be? It will get exhibition sport status in the Olympics soon? Or?
We certainly hope so.
Yeah, because
Hope so,
bowling,
but,
bowling is an Olympic sport. I mean, there should
True.
be. If bowling is an Olympic sport, bodybuilding should be one as well. No.
That's right. That's why while waiting for this to happen, we've been really advocating, we've been supporting these guys to get support from the private sector because, to get money from the government, fine, probably you'll get something someday. But there are big companies out there, who energy drinks companies, protein powder companies and everything.
Yeah.
And we're actually promoting the healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
So we just really need to get out there and opportunities like things like this. This is part
So open their
yeah,
eyes
these
to
are
bodybuilding.
the things that the industry needs,
Yes.
really.
Now, Lee, before we break for our first segment, can we talk about, tell us about the UBC in December. What is so special about this this competition, the Ultimate Bodybuilding Championship? Why is it different from other?
Okay, as opposed to the other bodybuilding leagues in the Philippines, UBC, we have a segment in the grand finals of the competition wherein the bodybuilders actually get to challenge each other in terms of the posing routines. So as opposed to traditional mandatories, we've added a twist, in which is what we call the challenge round.
Actually, if I may, if you look at other organizations like the UFC, right, mixed martial arts, martial arts in itself would not make the mainstream, but when MMA got in, it was everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And this is basically our attempt to do the same for bodybuilding.
Nice,
so if you notice, we kind of project them in a different way, and it's very heavy on not just the traditional stuff, but we've got rock bands and similar MMA shirts, round girls even. So it's gonna be
Make it exciting.
really exciting one.
Exciting.
Make it cut to the mainstream
Yes,
and hopefully get some support
And
at the end of the day for the athletes.
And the other important thing is, as opposed to the other tournaments that we've had here, where the audience was primarily bodybuilders themselves, we're bringing this to the people. Like in this case, this one is going to be held at Chendesitas. That's a huge market out there. Families, friends, so on and so forth.
Admission is free.
Admission is free.
So we're practically
It will be in the
doing it
middle,
for-
in the middle of Chendesitas.
Right
There's a
in the
big
middle, right,
hole
in
there.
the food court.
The food court, excellent.
And
So-
the next one is going to be Ultimate Boracay. That's May 2 to 5.
Yeah.
Nice.
Where
nice.
we're going to have some competitors all over Asia and the Pacific.
Is this just men or women bodybuilders
Men
as well?
and women.
And women as well.
Although
okay.
although for this one, this is men first.
Okay.
Men first.
The idea is, we normally send bodybuilders out of the country. You have to get their fare and everything else. You don't know how well they're going to be treated there. We want to reverse things. We want to get other nationalities to come to the Philippines and compete.
Excellent.
Right,
Are you
so-
expecting any foreign guys to participate?
Not in this
Not
one,
yet.
but in the next one, that's Asia Pacific. And the one in November is going to be together, hopefully, with the Universe.
Excellent.
So we're going to
excellent.
bring them right here so these guys can win in their own homeland. And hopefully improve tourism also for the Philippines.
No, no, definitely hand in hand, and especially if you have them in locales like Boracay or Cebu, Palawan, places like that, no? Anyway, guys, hold that thought. We have to pause for a break. Don't go away because more of the basics of bodybuilding when Philippines Uncut returns. Actually.